So we'll just kind of jump into it for everyone. Welcome, guys. And so let's start. Coach, tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Drew, for having me. And I love being called coach. Love helping make people, particularly marginalized people with no hope, give them a
Mm-hmm.
vision. The Bible tells us that people perish for lack of knowledge, and where there is no vision, the people will perish. And so, coached for over about 20 years and got involved in youth sports and coaching my son for a period of time, and president of Arkansas Baptist College for a decade, and now just enjoying trying to meet the needs of Central Arkansas, the state of Arkansas, in trying to help young people, get a moral compass for their life, to make positive decisions, creating access through education for the least of these to be empowered through the written word so they can better comprehend the word of God, and looking at growing communities economically for sustainability to create local jobs within local neighborhoods. And excited to be a part of City Serve, every Arkansan Dream Center, every component of that, because the three components I just mentioned, every Arkansan checks every box.
Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I'm 35. I am single, and I didn't necessarily grow up in a church environment. I definitely grew up, my mom taught us, God was good, things like that, but we didn't go to church every Sunday. We were the Easter and Christmas kind of a family. But God definitely pursued me as I got older. And especially through like being sick and things like that, I'm somebody who has dealt with chronic pain and depression most of my adult life. And I've seen the miracles that God can perform, not just in myself, but also in our community. And he can move mountains for sure. And I have just had the awesome privilege of witnessing some of those miracles.
And so how did you two kind of connect?
It was a
Under
church.
dance.
Yeah, it was a church. But we were about after we started the New Life campus downtown, and we were all involved. Sarah was involved in, coordinating things for operations and execution of Sunday mornings. And of course I was there and to make sure. And of course you were there at the point when we were all, just bumping into each other, at 7:30 on Sunday morning and trying to say, hey, we're getting ready. And so, you can tell a person who has a servant heart. And I'm easily attracted to people who are trying to meet the needs of other people. And that's why I was became a Sarah fan, as I call myself, a Sarah fan, because of how, she never finds anybody who, a lot of people can look at other people and blow by and say, well, they don't really need anything, but she's the one that's going to look at everybody and listen to everybody. And, and I love her heart. And so that's why we're on Jesus' team for serving.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's been interesting because Sarah, you've been serving for years through Dream Center and Adopt a Block and different things, and then we kind of made this transition. But Sarah, kind of talk a little bit about how you kind of developed this passion, because, like I said, you've been doing outreach for a lot of years, not just with New Life, but even before that. So,
I love that, like, with NLC and with this local campus, church should feel like home. And I love that our church does feel like home. Like, no matter if you've got $1 million or if you've got negative $100 in your bank, if you walk into that church, you feel like home, and everybody is going to greet you. And it's just, I feel like church should be like that. It should feel like a place of rest. And all of more than just physical needs, but spiritual needs are taken care of. And that church should also be outside of those four walls. And that's what I loved so much about getting to talk with Fitz and being able to partner with him. And with this, what we've been able to do this last year, partnering with City Serve, is we got to take the church outside of those four walls. God's been showing me over and over again, especially over this last 6 months, that he intended, and he tells us in the Bible, in Corinthians and Ephesians, and so many times, all those letters that where they wrote to the churches telling them this is what church should be, it never says, it has to be inside of these four walls with a steeple, with a pastor up on stage and sound boxes and all that stuff. It's walking slowly through neighborhoods, listening to people's needs, and then doing your best to fill those needs, and then praying with people and building community. And I feel like when we get to go out and hear people's needs, maybe at an adopt-a-block, or, we're passing out 10,000 pounds of chicken or some, you never know. But you hear that need about somebody's coworker. And when we get to go and fill those needs at somebody's doorstep and pray with them and love on them, that's church to me. And that's what fills up my heart. I love it.
And Coach, you've done outreach before with City Serve. Tell me a little bit about the difference in really loving on your community before and after with City Serve.
Yeah, my whole life changed COVID-19. I've shared on several occasions that I thought that I knew what was going on, as a state board member, visiting communities. But, it's one thing to visit one day and see in one, you go out and visit somebody, well, you it's kind of like passing by. It's another thing to go to that community about 3 to 4 days a week for 3 months. And that's exactly what happened. And after about 3 days, and I couldn't, if something would come up, work related or something else with responsibility, I couldn't go, then I found myself missing those children in Spanish John's and at Sunset, or all the places that, and I was really drawn to Spanish John's because the need was so great. The murders were taking place. You could just feel the void of spirit in that community, and how we could be a transforming agent for Jesus Christ by serving others. And when I saw exactly, for a couple of months back to back, how unconnected I was to marginalized people who really had needs that were not being met. Children had needs that were not being met, and we started feeding them. I realized we had to crank up what we were doing and elevate the presence of the Holy Spirit in those environments by meeting the needs. And that's when I called Sarah and I said, hey, come out with me, because there are families that our City Serve team needs to serve. Their babies are sleeping on the floors and all those type of things. And several places that we went to, we had been involved with Sunset prior to the living facility at Sunset prior to the pandemic. We were picking them up and bringing them to church. But then, I connected Sarah to couple other living facilities throughout the community that needs were not being met. And you feel bad that you can't meet everybody's needs, but you feel better by trying to meet the needs, particularly of those who have children, that are, that in very complicated situations. And so the whole perspective of my, in 2021 would look back on April and May of 2020 and how City Serve started meeting the needs throughout Arkansas and Central Arkansas specifically, it really changed my life. And I realized that, America has been blessed, but we have so much more that we have to offer and what we can do for the least of these, which if Jesus came back to the earth today, physically, this is the people that he says is, biblical, that he would serve. So we want to crank it up for those individuals and really elevate the Holy Spirit and bring heaven to earth in those communities in crisis.
Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I love his vision. I love the way Fitz just injects, like, we want to take care of feeding the needs, but also listening to more than just food. Because like you said, with Spanish John and a few of those other neighborhoods, we were able to connect with like the leasing managers and people like that to hear about, the kids or the moms that are sleeping on the floor and get them beds over the summer, get them cleaning supplies. So that way, when we're just meeting them, every week to get food, we were also, giving them tools to feel empowered to be a little bit better parents. And that's not that they were being bad parents beforehand, but giving them the tools to feel better about what they're doing.
Let me say something on Sarah's behalf. Do you realize what it means to a family, which, Sarah has diapers in the back of a car and she's like Santa Claus to people who don't have diapers. Think about that now. Yeah. I mean, and what I realize how much we take for granted. I've been to third world countries, Drew, as you have been, and Sarah, people, and we've seen it all over and over. We have really people in the United States that are in third world need, as I call it, and they're not being met. And to think about when you see a family who have no diapers, and just something like that, and you're able to do that, changes an entire perspective for a family that we're thinking about. Okay, yeah, we'll give some, we'll go to Walmart and get some diapers. Well, how do you go to Walmart or go to Kroger's or go to Dollar General and buy diapers if you have no resources? So I mean, that's like, she was like manna. Diapers from heaven, just rain down on the people. And you always want to be that. And City Serve allowed for us to do that in real time by now having our own storage house and a storage facility. And if somebody comes up with something, now we don't have to go over there. We're stocking up so we can meet the needs in real time. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need this, which we've done. I had a family, because during COVID, their little kids were still trying to play, but they couldn't drink out of water fountain. They said, do y'all have water? I mean, we took 4 cases of water to Man's Middle School so that the kids would have water to drink because they had shut down the water fountains. That's meeting the needs in real time. When you walk in that water balls, everybody looks, and that's City Serve. That's empowering the communities to meet the needs of the children.
Well, and one of the other things, y'all are located downtown, so y'all have some unique situations going on there, but also with COVID, this has enabled people who want to serve in a whole new way. Can y'all kind of share some of the stories and experiences y'all have had with that?
Go ahead, Sarah. I don't want to talk. I don't want to.
Yeah. No, you're okay. It's really given us an opportunity to pull in people from our church that wouldn't normally jump in, just like you said. We've been able to start doing what we call blessing bags, because it's more than just like a sandwich and a fruit in a bag. We have started building bags that are full of, a couple masks, gloves. It also has like snack bars, body wipes, all kinds of different things. Here through the winter, it's got gloves and a beanie, hand warmers, all kinds of different things that well, just to help our homeless friends be able to survive a little bit better, especially because a lot of shelters aren't open or they have much more limited capacity. And we want people to be able to feel free to give these out. And we like being known as a resource. The Van, which is a wonderful organization, is somebody that we've been able to partner with and be able to get them 2 to 3 of the jump starter, with the little plugs and all that kind of good stuff. I'm not a car person by any means, but there's so many that live out of their cars, and we've been able to supply them with those as well as some tents and things like that, so that way they have better resources. And it's all about these different community groups and church groups coming together, so that way downtown it doesn't always have to just be us, but we can be seen as a resource to help everybody meet the needs of our homeless friends, because they're a part of our community, and they're not something to be just pushed under the rug, because they're here and their lives are just as valuable as anything else.
But also it's allowed leaders that were out of the game because of COVID opportunity to minister. Tell me about that.
I have loved seeing all the different leaders come up. I mean, there's been one, like our Little Life leader. We've been able to empower her to be able to recognize her own people. We got to recognize her herself. And when they have the tools to be able to recognize people in their own groups, and it's not just coming from us, from CityServe, like we can give her things to be able to recognize her people, or tools to be able to build games for her kids, or like just this last week, we gave an entire box just full of costumes and games and all kinds of things to Jonathan Dearsaw. He is one of our Kid Life pastors. And for him to be able to have those kind of resources, to just be able to go, okay, what kind of games are we going to play today? I mean, that's just huge. And even the widow, there is a widow that's in our church, and to be able to give her the things she needs to be able to take care of herself, because she actually takes care of other widows through some government programs, and that's like her little side job. But come to find out, through all of this COVID this year, she didn't have the things to take care of herself. And so with us being able to provide things, helped her feel empowered to, and meet the needs for her, filling in that last little gap. I mean, can you imagine how much self-confidence that builds? So that way, when she's going to other people's houses or she's on the phone with somebody else, that kind of confidence just breathes life into her own ministry. I am so thankful every day that God decided our church could be a part of this, because there's just too many examples to go through every single one of them. It has changed the way our church empowers our different leaders, but also all the different groups. He's given us tools to be able to do things in a whole different way.
And it's really interesting, especially with Coach. Coach, you've got your doctorate degree. You ran a university, but since COVID began, you've really discovered that there's a whole lot more needs in our community than you ever realized were even out there, and opportunities. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, like I said, I was just blown away. It's one thing to visit, one time, and a lot of times when you're in leadership positions and you're not really, what I say, where the rubber hits the road, you're just a passerby guy. But because I was with your team and wanted to, and I don't know why, I was just attracted to going every day because I didn't want to sit at home, and during the pandemic because, I saw what we were doing as essential as an essential worker for the communities, because as understanding those kids who got 2 meals at school were not getting those 2 meals. I mean, and how can we make sure that happen? And I'm representing this as also being a state board member, want to see the education that's going on or that's not going on as well. And many kids did not have access to the website to online capabilities. So man, it just really hit me, in another way to realize, man, there's so much more that has to be done to levelize, access to opportunities, because, so many people are not even in the starting blocks. I mean, but we want them to produce, but they don't have those resources to be able to do that. And we were talking last night on the radio. It's tough enough. I mean, my family to have a 2-parent home, and I realized the struggles that we had with our children, with a mother and a father there with 2 cars, and still how complicated it was to take care of our kids.
Absolutely.
With both of us. So when I start thinking about that and realizing the challenges of parents, one parent who's unemployed, with multiple children, very with minimal resources, and then how they're going to get to a certain place is like, to get their kids here or there. And then when, oftentimes when the kid's not coming to school, well, is who, we hold the kid responsible for it, but what was he supposed to do? Or she, what was it supposed to do? And so now the kids are with the challenges that are home, and then now you've taken them out of the 8 hours of positive environment that they were having prior to COVID, and now they're in that environment for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, have lost the positive contacts through education. We will see the results of COVID-19 for years to come because of how this year has impacted. I read one study from a district football organization out in California, and it said because of COVID-19 and having to shut down the athletic departments, 85 young men who they felt wouldn't have been a problem ended up in jail in the fall. I mean, just think about those impacts in that, and that's just one community. That's one school. Right. That's one football district. And so that's just really a symptom to things that happened with the pandemic. And, and that's why I applaud, you never shut it down. What would have happened? Think about this. They shut down the competition because of COVID. What would have happened if end of March, April, May, and June, you shut down feeding? Just think about the result of what would have taken place if those 1.1 million meals. There's no telling how many situations that you eliminated because you met the basic needs. CityServe met the basic needs, and I got fired up meeting the basic needs of people that were looking for us every day. What time you come in there, and then because of relationships that your team had established with Special K and all the other teams, the kids never wanted to leave. Y'all coming back tomorrow? Well, that's relationships that your organization had built. And so, and once you have those relationships, then you can help people better themselves. But it's hard to move people to elevate people to the next level when there's no relationships. And, I know what Marius does with the parent night, to get the parents there, and just the whole wraparound services that we're trying to offer. And that's what makes Everett, Arkansas unique. It's not just, oh yeah, we do that. No, what do you need for us to do? We're going to make sure that we're able to take care of those needs. And if we can't, we're going to pull somebody else in the fold with us to say, hey, can you do this? And so we will have those comprehensive services that we can meet the needs of the community.
Well, and Sarah, on a lot of that stuff, you had the opportunity of working with Adopt a Block, which was really just going out and forming relationships early on.
Yeah.
But now y'all have been able to elevate all of that. You guys, I know, would, can y'all hear me?
I can hear you now. You were breaking up. Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit. You're not using Mario's computer, are you?
I'm not using Mario's computer, but for some reason, my iPod or my iPods aren't even out, and it switched over to the microphone on that. And I'm like, I don't even have them. I don't know what was going on. So I turned off my Bluetooth. But you guys were going out doing Adopt a Block, and a lot of times you would show up at a doorstep and a family would tell you a story, and all you could do was pray.
Yeah.
Let's pray about this situation. Tell me about how it's different now than before.
I mean, you could take that our very first surf project was at Sunset. We had been doing Adopt a Block out there for probably about 2 years. And Miss Kathy, she's like the grandma out there. She takes care of, she has one grandchild that lives with her. And I know she'd be okay with sharing this story because we've talked through it so many times, and she'll tell you all about it. But her apartment had caught on fire. There was an internal house fire, and she was just devastated and heartbroken. And the Red Cross had gotten her into an apartment, and we were able to get her 2 new beds because of City Serve, 2 new dressers, a couch, and a recliner. And the biggest thing is because we already had that trust relationship built up. So when we showed up, me and Chris and Crystal, that at the time, the Adopt a Block team, when we showed up and we're like, the roof is black, what's going on? And we tracked down where she was. We used the neighbors, and because she didn't have her phone at the time. And so we tracked down which hotel she was in. Like, we were able to, meet the immediate needs, went and picked her up, brought her actually down to you guys down there at the North Little Rock Dream Center. We were able to take her through the little clothes closet that day, get her some immediate, food for there in the hotel room. Got that emergency order put in for her furniture. It was delivered the next week, and even got to partner with a local church that provided her a brand new washer and dryer. It was the perfect example of exactly how we wanted to start that kind of stuff. And it just, like, word started spreading about what we can start doing. And it made our relationships with the leasing manager there so much better. It made our relationships with the longtime residents there better. They already knew that we weren't going anywhere anytime soon because we show up no matter if it's rain, sunshine, sleet. We're showing up in the fall with backpacks. If it's gross outside, we're still going to show up with meals to the front door. But now we have the power of things behind it. Prayer is amazing, and prayer is so, so powerful. But when you have the tools behind you to say, hey, yeah, you got to throw that couch out because it's full of bed bugs, but I might be back. Let me check on something. I might be able to have something to replace it with. How amazing. And just, I mean, there's no words for that, especially for a family that either they would have to go to like Goodwill and pray that there's something decent, or, you know, they're picking up somebody else's discards off the side of the road. Like, there's just, most of those are on such a finite income that there's just, that they would not have the kind of options that we would think of.
But, and Coach, I mean, you tell a story about getting a call from caseworker at a school, counselor at a school. Tell that story.
Yeah, I tell you, you know, we remember early in the year, in September, we invited, you know, superintendents and caseworkers over to the Everett, Kansas office to share, you know, how can we meet the needs of the community. I think it's so important that we understand. We hope that you know, the church will be able to mobilize and meet the needs of the community, but we also know, and I know every Sunday morning at church, when I get on the road heading to church at, you know, 7:45 to get there to walk, there's very little traffic on the highway. I mean, it's just church is not, Sunday is not a busy day, and you know, and that's for that reason. We have to think of how we can get into the community and make the connection to church. So we do that through other organizations, other nonprofits, schools, and being one of those, because we know in most, you know, for the majority, on every Monday morning, Monday through Friday, kids will be in school, and oftentimes the teachers and the social workers can meet the needs, and they work closely with the schools. And so we had a social worker from North Little Rock to visit our City Serve presentation, and we shared, hey, if you got kids with problems, we want to help. And although we normally work through the churches, please feel free to reach out to me, and we can use our church, New Life Downtown, and then we will get you connected to a church in your community, and that could be the facilitator for that. We don't want to turn anyone down because they say, well, we don't have a church. So our church is kind of like the default church, you know, for City Serve, and we're working hard to make those other connections with other churches within the communities, you know, for them. And Sarah and Kendall work on that, but we don't turn anybody down. So when the social worker called me and said, hey, Coach, you remember you said that y'all could help the family that was in need. She said, we have a situation where the grandmother just took over adopting the children because the mother had deserted her kids, and the kids did not have any beds and didn't have any furniture. And could we step in? And I said, absolutely. That's exactly what we do. And I said, immediately, I called Tony at City Serve, and I said, hey, we got a crisis situation for 2 children whose situation is not good. And I would like to be able to see if we could get these 2 babies, and they were 9 and 12, maybe 9 and 11, and I call them babies. We can get them beds within 72 hours. Tony had contacted me back. We picked up the beds on Saturday morning. We distributed. That was actually our pickup day anyway. But I got another vehicle, so we could just take those specifically over to that family. And I called a social worker, and I said, hey, it's like 11:30. I said, I have your beds. I said, I'll meet you at the house of the children. Send me that address. She did. Got there. She met me there. The children were there by themselves, and the grandma was at work. And to see that situation, and Tammy from my church, she went out with me to help, you know, distribute the beds. And I'll never forget, because as we walked in the house, the kids were just blown away at the brand new beds, so still packaged everything. And the kids say, wow, who brought us those beds? Who brought us those beds? And Tammy said, Jesus. Jesus sent these beds to you all because he loves you. And that created a whole conversation about Jesus and show the love. And that's why we call it, really that was divine blessings, home makeover, because that was a divine blessing, home makeover for those kids who, as I walked in there and saw their pillow and their blankets on the floor, not 1 ounce of furniture in that entire bedroom. And to think that we were able to work as vessels through through a divine blessing that came through for those children, that's a miracle. I mean, and free. And God had already allocated that through how you tell a city serve work when people give back from Costco to Wayfair to Pottery Barn, all these companies that give back. Well, if you understand truly how God worked, those beds had those babies' name on it when they were produced, when they were manufactured. That's how God worked. And so it was so amazing to see the smiles on their face and the question they asked when we told them that God sent those to them like manna from heaven.
Mm-hmm. And he restores more than what you had before. And I love getting to see people so excited, like when we're bringing things in and stuff like that. There are so many that expect Walmart level stuff, or even worse than that. They expect us to bring in donations. And when we roll up with, real wood dining room tables and beautiful furniture, and it's like they don't know what to do with themselves. And the only thing I can say is just to remind them and reassure them that God promises to restore better than he found you. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly, I love that.
Yeah. And I think the other cool thing has been y'all pick up usually on Saturdays, and it's been a way that y'all have been able to mobilize other people in the church to take part in it. From bringing your vehicle and hauling stuff and delivering stuff and all that. Saturday becomes probably busier for most people than church on Sunday.
We're trying to lower that a little bit, but yes, it's so neat to see big groups come together and we unload all of it and just kind of sort through, and then we might have a blessing on that day. But now that we have a big storage unit, we can have a blessing on that day, but then also kind of plan out the next weekend. Okay, we're going to deliver to these 2 families. And then the next weekend, we're going to deliver to these 2 families. And it just makes it really special when we can raise up other leaders that have now done it several times with us and say, hey, you know how to do this now. And you know what all we need to receive back. So, okay, we'll meet you next Saturday. We'll get you all the things you need. Go forth and bless.
Yeah. And what we also did, and it was really, really good to Sarah, now that we have our own storage, because what we found out, so people can actually see, and that's the thing, what Sarah was talking about, we see it quite frequently in what we're doing, but oftentimes people don't get to see it. They just hear us tell about it. So what we, once COVID gets behind us a little bit more and vaccined up and all that, but the first time that we did a Sunday after church serving, we went over after church. We had a group that it was really good after church, because you can sit there and say, if you want to go out with us after church, we're going to be doing this at 12:30 today. And so please, after our first service, come back, or after our second service, just go out with us and having our M18 crew there and all those type of things of service, which has been just awesome, because they get to see what happens when you bless and serve other people. And those are the type of things that really changes the mindset of people who may have been going down the wrong path, and for them to see what the right path looks like.
Yeah. And I think think it's cool too for especially, all of this year through COVID. And, we keep referencing back to COVID, but even before that, people would give to missions or to local missions, and they would hear or see pictures of all these different things going on. This gives people a chance to say, okay, I'm going to give, a couple hours this Saturday to really check out what's going on. And it's not a huge commitment. They can come and just unload the truck for a couple hours, which is totally kid friendly because it's in a secure environment and we're just unloading boxes. Or, hey, I'd love to check out what this blessing team is all about. And, show up with your husband, your friends, your YA group, and you get with a leader, y'all go and take some beds and a couch to somebody the next weekend. Hey, it's really, we have it set up now to where any kind of group can sign up to do just about anything. And it's very small time commitments. And you can really get a taste of just about any piece of the serve line or the blessing line.
And that's amazing to find a place for everyone to serve. And
Yes.
all that. Are there any more stories of just cool experiences y'all have had with showing up at someone's doorstep that y'all want to share?
Oh, man. There was, I don't want to say her name, but there was a very sweet lady that we got from a friend of a friend. She worked with somebody who went to our church. And she now goes to our church, which is awesome. That's always the goal, that like that relationship really builds and that trust builds. But she was sleeping on the couch. The kids were sleeping on just a pallet. Like they had probably like 5 blankets and just a couple pillows. And we didn't realize the severity of the situation when we walked in. And so when we're coming up there with a bed and a mattress and all kinds of linens and things, and that was one of those where I just felt an urge to go ahead and pack up an extra box of like protein and waters and diapers and just some snacks and things like that. And I was just, you're going, I am so glad I listened to that little voice inside my head, because it was, you just knew that they needed above and beyond kind of a blessing. And those little kids, oh man, they were so excited to each get their own pillow. That was the coolest thing to them, to each have their own pillow. And they were so excited to get, we got them a couple toys, and it blew my mind, just those simple things that we take for granted. I don't know about you, but I got more than 2 pillows on my bed. And for them to be excited to have one, it just a little touched the heart.
I have one story also that it was Kendall had called, and once again, a mother had deserted her daughter, and the daughter had been at home, hadn't been to school in 3 or 4 days, and had been there without eating. And one of her neighbors was leaving, and she called. She stopped the neighbor and asked the neighbor if they could bring her some food.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately they realized that there was a problem, because she was hungry. And so the neighbor ended up contacting the police. DHS ended up coming by and picking up the daughter, and they ended up finding a temporary foster home for her to go to, and she had nothing, in the situation. And so we, once again, being the default church, we then had got the needs that we were able to pack up And then we actually distribute them directly to, because she was a female, to the two female police officers at the police station with all the things that they requested that she needed to take to the foster care. So she would have some personal items. And, that was when I really saw that situation, and I saw how the female police officers, looked when we brought in 2 boxes of everything for that child. That was really empowering to me to realize, once again, as Sarah said, what we take for granted, this baby had nothing, and that, I'm sure she was going to need more, but the fact that we helped her through that transitional time until she could get settled, into a foster care. I don't know what it feels like going from a house to a foster care, people that you don't know, but I'm certain taking some of your own supplies there make you feel better about yourself rather than walking up into a house with nothing and thinking that everybody has to do something for you. So as I thought about that situation, I said, if we help give her confidence through giving her these items, then, maybe this will be a blessing for her as she transitions into an unfamiliar environment to feel like that she has her own stuff rather than going there and have to ask for some stuff. So that was a special moment for me.
Yep. Drew, if you've got time for one more, I'll tell you a cool one.
You got it.
This is one that is part of our church family. We have a young girl, she's in her mid-20s, and she has decided to start the foster process. And we, as a church family, could not be more excited and proud for her. Her name's Ramsey, and she is just I think she's been approved, or she's in that process. I don't know. But when she reached out to me and said, hey, what all can you guys help with? And I said, as much as you want, because that's part of our mission, is to help foster families. We want you to be able to see us as a resource. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that one of her inspections was coming up, and she had to have 2 beds. So we reached out to Carson and Tony, and I said, hey, here is the perfect situation. We get to solve a need before it goes to the call. We get to solve a need before it becomes an emergency. This is perfect. And so we got her 2 beds. I was able to get her some things just out of our current storage that'll really help. As a church family, we started building her an Amazon wish list. So that way she has things prepared like books and toys and dishes and things like that. But I can't wait to see how our part of the church and her and the rest of the church family can make this a new thing. I'm excited.
And it's also cool because I know Ramsey, and she was adopted.
Yeah.
And so it's like what God laid on her is her story, and now she's getting to walk it out.
Yes.
With the support of a community and support of parents that appreciate that moving forward. So, and that's one of the things Fitz and I have been talking about on the radio lately is there's 8,200 kids that'll go through the foster care system this year. Mm-hmm. What's it look like when the local church comes around one of these kids and changes their life?
Yeah. I mean, somebody like Ramsey to bring in a kid, and it's not just her, she will have the entire church family around her and resources to go along with it. Mm-hmm. And I think we're setting up for success and being able to show other people that it doesn't have to just be this church. There could be, how many churches do we have in City Serve nowadays? what, like
180 something.
I mean, if one person in every one of those churches decided, hey, I might be able to do that. How many kids? I mean, they're just big vision. Sorry.
So guys, we're so thankful for all you're doing. Y'all's heart just to go out there, as Fitz says, serving Sarah. But
I don't know if I'll ever live up to that name, but I'm gonna sure try.
well, I've had 3 or 4 nicknames since I met him. So
Yeah,
be glad it's just one.
It's Transformation Drew. Touchdown Drew. Transformation Drew. He's changing Central Arkansas through everywhere I can.
So, but I appreciate you guys taking the time. We've been on here for an hour now. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
But thank y'all so much for that and for all you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Well, Drew, we thank you for your leadership. Bishop Fred Harris was talking the other day. He said, this morning while we were cutting this, he said, Drew has changed the model in Central Arkansas. He's been here a long time. That is transformative, and we appreciate your leadership. And glad to be on your team, and glad to serve God's people with you.
Yep.